It certainly was a roller coaster of good and bad moments, but at the end of the day, every show is like that. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and to another video. Today we are going to be talking about my final thoughts on the original Naruto series. Now, if this is your first time here and you maybe don't know what's happening, I am watching Naruto for the very first time. I started watching anime in 2020. And I haven't really touched any of the big three yet, just because the amount of episodes there is has always been very terrifying to me as someone who works a full-time job and also does this side hobby of making YouTube videos. So it took me a while to decide which one to watch, and then my friends kind of helped me come to the conclusion that Naruto was going to be the best choice. I have finished the first series, so the original Naruto series, and I want to talk about my final and closing thoughts for that. And I also just want to add a quick cliff note before I get into it. I did skip over filler for now. My idea on this is that by the end of Shippuden, if I'm just completely locked in on the story and the characters, it'll be way more fun for me to finish Shippuden and then go, wow, I have all this extra content with these characters that I can now go and watch. That doesn't really move the plot forward, but I can just spend time with these characters. So if I finish Shippuden and I'm like, man, I'm not ready to say goodbye to these characters, I will then go back and watch the filler. But as of right now, where I'm at in the story, while I have started to gain some love and some attachment to some of the characters, I'm not to that point where I think I could sit through hundreds of episodes of filler where nothing actually really happens without being bored and giving up on the show in general. So when I'm talking about all of my final thoughts about this original series, I did skip over the filler. So stay tuned. Maybe I will come back to the filler and make more videos about it. And then, as always, I do split these videos into parts. So first we'll be talking about the characters, then we'll be talking about the plot, and then we will talk about overall thoughts and give it a final rating. But before we do, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts on my thoughts on Naruto. I just, as always, ask that you keep it respectful. I do not care if you disagree with me. That is totally fine. Also, you can follow me on social media. If you're interested in my Japan content, my figure skating content, or my cosplay content, you can go to my Instagram at Hannah Malay. If you're more interested in my random thoughts throughout the day or my Demon Slayer short form content, you can go to my X and TikTok at lookingnerdy, and those are all linked in the description. But with that, let's get into it. So, final thoughts on the characters first. I would definitely agree. A lot of people have said that the characters are kind of truly the heart of this show, because at the end of the day, the storyline so far hasn't had any huge, oh, wow moments. There's been one, which I'll talk about, but other than that one plot point that I'm thinking of right now, it's been a very straightforward, we want to be the Hokage, we're taking on missions, all that kind of stuff. And the characters definitely carried the show a bit for me, but I will just throw out there, if you've watched my series on each arc up until now, you might know that I wasn't really feeling the Chunin exam, which a lot of people love the Chunin exam because it develops so many of the characters. But just in my opinion, when it comes to developing characters, the longer you take per character in one arc, like in the Chunin exam, we got development for probably 10, 15 characters, the more I forget what happened to ones before that and the less interest I have. I would much rather a bunch of characters just get short development just throughout all of the arcs rather than it just being so upfront and just constant like that. But that being said, I still think the character development within the story has been the strongest part of it. And I'll give you what I think right now, as of right now, are my top 3 characters. Number 1, I think, has to go to Kakashi. As of right now, he's a bit more mysterious. In fact, I think from all the characters in my top 3, he probably is the most mysterious and has had the least full development. However, they keep kind of leaving us just little bites of information about him, so I feel like the payoff is going to be very satisfying, and I've heard his payoff is really good just in general from the fandom. So Kakashi is just, yes, he's beautiful and stuff, but I really like the dynamic that he has with Naruto, Sakura, and had with Sasuke. I would still like to see more of him, and he still did some stuff that I kind of was frustrated with. I would still love to see him be a little bit more protective. Like, when I see a teacher or someone that a younger character looks up to, when I see them be protective over that person, that gets me going. And Kakashi has been. One of my favorite moments was when the invasion arc started, and I think Sakura was about to get hit by one of the invaders, and Kakashi was just there to protect her, which I do still have an issue with how Sakura was represented in this first original series. I've talked about a lot how I felt like Sakura was just not developed or shown in a way that was good at all. But even then, when Kakashi just like swooped in to save her when she didn't have time to react, that kind of stuff I am obsessed with. So I think Kakashi is just my favorite because I love that he is super, super strong and he's established as someone who's super, super strong, but also we saw him we saw him lose a fight against Itachi, and I like when we have this like overpowered character have a moment where they're not the strongest in a fight. I like establishing those kinds of storylines. I love his protectiveness, and I love the mystery surrounding him. I do like it when characters are very mysterious and they just leave us just enough information that I am interested in what happens next, but I don't know yet. So I'm excited to see what else happens with him. Okay, my second favorite character, and he moved up after the final arc, that is Shikamaru. And he's really pushing to be the favorite. The only problem I have with him is that I just haven't had enough time with him like I have with Kakashi. I feel like Kakashi has been fairly present for most of the story. Shikamaru was not. Like, he got some development in Chunin, but I've established that I forgot a lot of what happened in Chunin exam because it just took so long to get to the point. But Shikamaru in the Sasuke rescue mission was incredible and almost moved him into first. I loved just seeing him kind of grapple with his first mission being in charge, but also having it be such an important mission to him and to everyone going, because it wasn't just any regular old mission. They were going to try to get their friend back. You know, the person they went to school with, the person that they grew up with, they're trying to get him back, and there's a lot of pressure involved with that. So I love that he didn't just have it all figured out and that he didn't really know what to do, and he relied a lot on the help of his teammates as well. But he, throughout that arc, learned how to be a leader. I tend to lean more towards the Sunshine Boys. I mean, we've established how much I love Tanjiro Kamado, but my second favorite type is the opposite of that, like a Giyu Tomioka, that's just kind of like quiet and, as we call it, the emo boys. And there's just something about Shikamaru where I was just watching him grow in that arc, and I was just like, I'm starting to really, really care about this guy. So I'm putting him in second because of those reasons. And I usually establish this before I start the video, and I haven't done that yet. But the things that I love are purely out of the way my heart feels when I'm watching the show. So none of what I'm saying is objective fact. I will never get on the internet and say, this is objectively bad, this is objectively good, because media is art and art is subjective, and everyone perceives it slightly differently. So you're never gonna see me making videos called Naruto is incredibly incompetent, because no. Even if I were to get on the internet right now and say, I did not like this, I dropped it, I can't do Shippuden, it just didn't grab my attention, I wouldn't be getting on here and saying, it's bad and all of you who love it are dumb, right? I do all of my thought process based off of just the way my heart feels and based off of my perception of the story. So, random rant in the middle of this. So Shikamaru definitely came in second because I just genuinely, the way they developed him in that arc was right on par with the way I like things. So I'm really excited to see what else happens with him. I hope we get to see more of him soon, and I'm looking forward to just the growth that we will experience from him. Number 3, it's kind of a tie. I really love Rock Lee and I really love Gata for very, very different reasons, but I'm gonna have to put Gata in 3 right now, I think. Which is crazy because I would say that Rock Lee was my favorite for a little while, and I do love Rock Lee. Rock Lee is very much the sunshine boy that just works very hard, is not very gifted, but can do a lot of amazing things simply because of his work ethic. And I just want to throw out that Rock Lee is a very well-loved character on my list, and things are going to continue to shift. But Gata, I'm gonna put in my top 3 because his character development also kind of carried the plot for me. His character development is when I really started to feel for the characters in general, and I started to feel a little bit more attached to the show, so I think that I can't let that go unnoticed. The story of Gata and the way he's been developed so far is the reason why I really got into the show in these final arcs. I don't think y'all understand when Gata, Temari, and Kankuro showed up to save everyone on the Sasuke rescue mission. I had to pause it. I was so excited because ever since Gata fought Naruto, I was like, it is obvious that they're paralleled. You know, Gata and Naruto represent character parallels. They have very similar backgrounds, and their fight was one of the first times I really teared up during it, because I love it when you see two characters that are on opposite sides have a very similar theme. And of course, like, they both have, I forget exactly what they call it, but it's like when they have like demons inside of them, so they're targeted in different ways. But I felt like the natural progression of Gata to become an ally of the Hidden Leaf Village and all of them, and go from, you know, being with Orochimaru to being an ally, was very, very well done. It was quick. They didn't make it too long where it was just like, we're just waiting and waiting and waiting, but it wasn't so short that it was anticlimactic when it happened. Like, that's how I have to refer to it, was just they paced that development so well. And that kind of goes with what I was saying about the Chunin exam earlier. The Chunin exam had so much character development, but it was paced so poorly that I just couldn't get into it. But then when we got into after the Chunin exam and the invasion and everything after that, all of the development made sense, and it had me so excited. So I feel like because Gata I love, but also that story is really what helped me to truly start to fall in love with the story itself, I have to put him in the top 3. I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to not do that. So as of right now, that is my top 3, but overall I give the characters a 9.5 out of 10. Like I said, I truly think the characters so far are carrying the show, and for me, I think that means that check in with me in a few weeks. I'll probably be like, this show's in my top 5 anime. Maybe it'll move to top 3. We'll see. Because if I can get behind the characters and I can have at least one character that I am obsessed with and just love, I will be obsessed with the show. An anime could be a mind-boggling, well-written story, but if there are no characters that I care about, I do not care about the show. And Naruto was going that way, where it was just like they were developing all the characters and I didn't care that much. None of them really stood out to me. I was forgetting them because we were spending so much time developing characters and not moving the story forward, that Gata's development saved the show. And if it continues to go that way, I will love this show. So definitely I would say, even though I would say the first arc was good, the Chunin exam almost lost me. That's really the only time where I was like, man, we're getting a bunch of characters, but none of them are interesting. Once we got through that was when I started to see the characters get the development that they deserved, that was interesting, that moved the plot forward. So I definitely would say, yeah, 9.5 out of 10 on the characters. They're carrying it so far. Okay, so next let's talk about the plot. So the plot is very straightforward. And I don't mind that. After all, I am a Demon Slayer fan, and the Demon Slayer plot doesn't really ever change. It's very straightforward. That doesn't make it bad. I'm tired of people acting like a straightforward plot is a bad plot, because that's just not true. Naruto hasn't really gone a route yet that's really been quite surprising to me. There hasn't been, like, a ton of plot twists. There hasn't been a ton of moments where I'm like, oh, that was major foreshadowing. I'm sure that will happen because there's so many episodes. They have no choice but to foreshadow things, I'm sure. I would say Gata was foreshadowed, but they made it wasn't really foreshadowing. It was just they were obviously writing it as a parallel. I think the only time that I was thoroughly surprised is I somehow didn't get spoiled on the fact that Sasuke is going through his own villain arc. And I actually really like how they're going with that story. I think that this was a very interesting way to do it, because I feel like in shows where I've seen a main character go on a villain arc, they start that very early on, and you know that it's going to happen pretty much from the start. It's very obvious that you don't want to get too attached to that character because they're going to go on that villain arc, and you can already see it. This one, I didn't see it happening probably until right before it happened. And not in a bad way where it was like, it just came out of nowhere. As soon as it happened, I was like, that made sense. That makes sense. I can see that happening. But it wasn't like I wasn't attached to him. Because I think he was my favorite character in season 1. I'd have to go back and watch that video. That plot point was a really good plot point. I would say that plot point and then the Gaara plot point were the two best parts of this original series, because that kept me so interested and there were emotions involved, right? And notice that both the plot points that I'm talking about are very heavy on the character development and very heavy on the just emotions of what the characters are feeling. And that's what I love, is these plots are centered around the characters, but they're centered around one character or two characters, unlike the Chunin exam that was centered around 20 characters, and I just okay, I'm sorry, I did not like the Chunin exam. I was nice about it in my video about it because I didn't want people to be like upset with me. I just didn't like it, okay? Like, that's just who I am. If you love the Chunin exam, good for you. I'm not trying to sit here and say that the Chunin exam was objectively bad. It just was not my cup of tea. Because that Chunin exam exists, unfortunately, I do have to give the plot a lower ranking, just because it lost me there. It picked itself back up, don't get me wrong, but the Chunin exam lost me. We're gonna give the plot an 8 out of 10. That might still seem a little bit low, but considering I would give the Chunin exam, looking back on it now, probably a 5 out of 10. I think I gave it a 6 out of 10 in my original video, but I've had more time to sit and think, and compared to all the other arcs, it was so much weaker for me, just out of my enjoyment. I think that it's still very straightforward. It's still very simple. They haven't done anything too crazy. However, it's been pretty airtight so far. There hasn't been anything way too crazy where I've been like, that was a huge plot hole, but it could just be that it's my first time watching, so there's things that I missed. It's been good. 8 out of 10 is a very just like, that was good. It wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing. That was good. And I think we can continue to climb that up. So 8 out of 10 for the plot. Alright, so my final thoughts are, I'm very happy I'm on this journey. I was very scared to start it. The problem that I have is that I started anime at a time where it was getting popular, and I already know some people will watch this video and be like, you're not a real anime fan because you started in 2020. I did not start because everyone else was starting. I started because my husband has been an anime fan for a long time, and he offered anime to me. It wasn't that I was anti-anime at any time. My parents are very, not like anti-anime, but they're like kind of judgmental that I watch it, but whatever. I did not start watching it because it became popular. I started watching it because my husband was like, you want to watch Attack on Titan? We watched Avatar: Last Airbender for the first time for you. Now let's watch anime. And then I got addicted to it because I realized that I've been sleeping on such a great medium. Long drawn out way of saying, I've been scared to start the big three because I am a huge Demon Slayer fan. And the people that are the most toxic towards people like me are the people that are very, very, like, that have the Naruto profile pictures. One Piece is worse, I will say. If you're a non-toxic One Piece fan, thank you. You're healing my perception of One Piece, because 9 times out of 10, if I get a very disrespectful comment on a video where I'm just talking about Demon Slayer because I like it, it's a One Piece fan. The other 10% are Naruto fans. Anyway, I was scared to watch it because I love to be a part of fandom spaces. I can't help but let the fandom somewhat affect the way I perceive a show. And I know people hate that. I know people are like, don't let the fandom perceive the way you do it, like you enjoy a show. If the fandom sucks, like, don't let that stop you from watching the show. However, I want to be a part of fandom spaces. So if I see a fandom for a show and I don't want anything to do with them, I probably won't watch the show because I want to enjoy having those conversations, but I see how they are and I won't get as much enjoyment out of the show if I cannot interact with the fandom. I have friends who have just been telling me, I'll love it, I'll love it, I'll love it, because it matches what I usually like. I'm glad they did. And to be completely honest, even though I didn't like the Chunin exam, I think this original series still surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. So I'm going to overall give it an 8.5 out of 10, again without filler. I've been impressed. I am excited to see what happens next with Shippuden, and to keep going on this journey. Shippuden's a lot longer, of course, so we're going to see how long it takes me to get through it. My goal is to get through it in this year. Like, to be finishing Shippuden by the end of the year. One final thing, though. Most people I know say to not watch Boruto, that it's not worth it. Don't watch Boruto. However, I know a few people that love it. Should I watch Boruto when I finish Shippuden? That's the question of the day. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts. Don't forget to also follow me on social media at Hannah Malay on Instagram and at lookingnerdy on TikTok and X. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you for Shippuden. またね